Welcome to Lesson 3.6 of the Grant Architect course, where we explore literature review fundamentals. In the previous lessons, we discussed how to gather local and national data, conduct gap analyses, and understand the problems affecting your target population. Now we turn to the scholarly literature, which provides a different but equally important type of evidence for your proposals. A well-executed literature review serves multiple purposes in grant writing. First, it supports your problem documentation with research evidence that validates the issues you have identified locally. Second, it establishes that your proposed interventions are evidence-based, meaning they are grounded in research demonstrating effectiveness. Third, it demonstrates scholarly credibility to reviewers, particularly important for federal grants and foundation proposals reviewed by academic experts. By the end of this lesson, you will understand how to efficiently search for relevant research, extract key information from studies, synthesize multiple sources into coherent summaries, and strategically use evidence to strengthen your proposals. These skills will help you build compelling arguments that satisfy both the academic rigor expected by reviewers and the practical relevance demanded by funders. Understanding why literature review matters will help you approach this task with appropriate attention and purpose. First, research provides the evidence base that supports your claims about both problems and solutions. When you state that a particular intervention reduces recidivism or improves educational outcomes, reviewers expect to see citations to studies demonstrating these effects. Unsupported claims undermine your credibility and raise questions about whether your approach is based on wishful thinking or actual evidence. Second, citing relevant literature demonstrates your familiarity with the field. Reviewers can quickly assess whether you understand the current state of knowledge about the issues you address. Missing key references or citing only outdated sources signals that you may not be adequately informed about best practices and current understanding. Third, funders increasingly require evidence-based approaches. The movement toward evidence-based practice has transformed philanthropy and government grant-making. Many funders now explicitly ask applicants to demonstrate that their proposed interventions have research support. Some will only fund programs that appear on approved evidence clearinghouses. Fourth, academic reviewers expect scholarly grounding. Federal grant applications and many foundation proposals are reviewed by researchers and academics who expect to see appropriate engagement with the scholarly literature. Meeting these expectations is essential for scoring well in competitive review processes. Knowing what to look for makes your literature search more efficient and productive. You will typically need 4 types of research for a strong proposal. First, seek problem documentation research that addresses prevalence, causes, and consequences of the issues you address. This research validates your needs statement with scholarly evidence. If you claim that food insecurity affects child development, you should cite studies demonstrating this relationship. Look for research establishing the scope and severity of the problem, its root causes, risk factors, and the negative consequences of leaving it unaddressed. Second, find intervention evidence showing what approaches work. This is crucial for establishing that your proposed solution is evidence-based. Seek randomized controlled trials, quasi-experimental studies, and systematic reviews that evaluate interventions similar to what you propose. Note effect sizes and the conditions under which interventions proved effective. Third, locate population-specific research relevant to your target group. General findings may not apply equally to all populations. If you serve rural communities, immigrant populations, or specific age groups, look for research conducted with similar populations. This demonstrates that your approach is appropriate for those you serve. Fourth, examine implementation factors and research on what affects program success. This includes studies on dosage, fidelity, staff qualifications, and contextual factors that influence outcomes. Understanding implementation science helps you design programs more likely to succeed. Knowing where to search saves time and ensures you find the most relevant and credible sources. Academic databases are your primary resources for peer-reviewed research. PubMed covers biomedical and health literature and is freely accessible. SciCinefo covers psychology and behavioral sciences, but requires subscription access, often available through libraries. ERIC focuses on education research and is freely accessible. Google Scholar searches broadly across disciplines and is helpful for initial exploration, though it includes non-peer-reviewed sources. Evidence clearinghouses are invaluable resources that have already evaluated intervention effectiveness. The What Works Clearinghouse reviews education interventions and rates them by evidence level. Blueprints for Healthy Youth Development reviews prevention programs for young people. SAMHSA's Evidence-Based Practices Resource Center covers behavioral health interventions. If your program model appears in these clearinghouses with positive ratings, you have ready-made evidence of effectiveness. Professional organizations often publish position papers, practice guidelines, and technical reports that synthesize research for practitioners. These can be excellent sources that translate academic research into actionable recommendations. Government agency reports synthesize research on policy-relevant topics. Agency websites often include research briefs, systematic reviews, and program evaluations. The CDC, NIH, and other federal agencies publish research summaries relevant to many nonprofit issue areas. Efficient search strategies save you hours of frustration and help you find the most relevant sources quickly. Start broad with initial searches to understand the landscape. Use general terms related to your topic to see what literature exists. This helps you identify key concepts, common terminology, and major themes in the research. Then refine your terms using subject headings and specific terminology you discovered in your initial search. Most databases use controlled vocabulary called subject headings that standardize how topics are indexed. Using these terms improves your search precision dramatically. For example, searching for substance abuse retrieves different results than searching for substance use disorder, the preferred term in many databases. Citation chaining is one of the most powerful search techniques available. Once you find a highly relevant article, examine its reference list for additional sources. Also search for articles that have cited that key article since its publication. This technique helps you trace the scholarly conversation in both directions, backward through references and forward through citations. Set appropriate limits on your searches to manage the volume of results. Limiting to recent publications, such as the past 5 or 10 years, ensures currency. Limiting to peer-reviewed sources ensures quality. However, be careful not to exclude important older work by setting limits too narrowly initially. Strategic reading skills help you extract what you need from research articles without spending excessive time. You cannot read every article in full, so develop a systematic approach. Always read abstracts first to determine relevance before investing time in the full article. A good abstract tells you the study's purpose, methods, key findings, and conclusions. If the abstract suggests the article is not relevant to your needs, move on to the next source. For articles that pass the abstract screening, focus on the key sections. The methods section tells you how the study was conducted, which helps you assess its quality and relevance to your context. The results section provides the specific findings, statistics, and effect sizes you may want to cite. The discussion section interprets findings and often identifies limitations and implications. Extract specific information as you read. Note statistics such as percentages, rates, and prevalence figures. Record effect sizes that quantify intervention impact. Capture key findings in your own words for later synthesis. Create a systematic way to organize this information, whether a spreadsheet, citation manager notes, or another system. Always note limitations and understand what research does and does not show. No study is perfect. Understanding limitations helps you cite research accurately and avoid overstating what evidence supports. Limitations include sample size, population studied, research design constraints, and threats to validity. Not all research is created equal, and understanding research quality helps you prioritize the strongest evidence. The study design hierarchy reflects how well different designs establish cause and effect relationships. Randomized controlled trials, or RCTs, sit at the top because random assignment to treatment and control groups controls for confounding variables. Quasi-experimental designs use comparison groups without randomization and provide moderately strong evidence. Observational studies, including surveys and correlational research, can identify associations but cannot establish causation. When evaluating evidence, prefer designs higher in this hierarchy. Sample characteristics matter significantly for both quality and relevance. Consider sample size, as larger samples generally provide more reliable estimates. Examine representativeness to determine whether findings generalize to other populations. Assess relevance by considering whether the population studied resembles your target population. A well-designed study with a sample very different from your community may be less useful than a weaker study conducted with a similar population. Peer review status indicates quality control. Peer-reviewed publications have been evaluated by experts before publication, though peer review is not perfect. Be cautious with non-peer-reviewed sources like preprints, conference papers, and reports that have not undergone this scrutiny. Replication across multiple studies strengthens evidence significantly. Single studies, even well-designed ones, may have idiosyncratic findings. When multiple studies reach similar conclusions, you can cite this convergence with greater confidence. Synthesis is where literature review becomes truly valuable for grant writing. Rather than simply listing what each source says, synthesis weaves multiple sources into a coherent story. Start with thematic organization by grouping sources by what they address rather than processing them one at a time. You might have sources about problem prevalence, sources about causes, sources about intervention effectiveness, and sources about implementation. Each theme becomes a section of your literature synthesis. Identify areas of consensus where multiple sources agree. Statements supported by multiple studies carry more weight than findings from single studies. You might write something like multiple studies have demonstrated that early intervention improves outcomes, citing 3 or 4 sources together. This approach is more persuasive than citing studies individually. Note disagreements in areas where evidence conflicts. Research rarely reaches unanimous conclusions. Acknowledging complexity and conflicting findings demonstrates sophistication and honesty. You might note that while most studies find positive effects, some research has identified conditions under which interventions are less effective. Build a narrative that weaves sources into a coherent summary, rather than producing a disjointed list of findings. Your synthesis should tell a story with a beginning, middle, and end. Start with what is known about the problem, move to what research says about solutions, and conclude with what this means for your proposed approach. Understanding how to use research in different parts of your proposal maximizes the value of your literature review. For problem support, cite research that establishes the significance and severity of the issue you address. Research can document prevalence rates, demonstrate consequences of the problem, identify risk factors, and show that the problem is widespread beyond your local community. National research validates that your local observations reflect broader patterns. For intervention justification, reference evidence supporting your approach. If you propose cognitive behavioral therapy, cite studies showing its effectiveness for your target population and issue area. If you propose a mentoring model, cite research on mentoring outcomes. This evidence demonstrates that your approach is not speculative but grounded in what research shows works. For method grounding, connect your specific methods to research-proven practices. If research suggests that weekly sessions produce better outcomes than monthly sessions, explain that your program schedule reflects this evidence. This level of detail shows that you have thought carefully about implementation based on what research recommends. Balance is essential. You need enough citations to establish your evidence base, but too many citations can overwhelm readers and disrupt narrative flow. A grant proposal is not a dissertation literature review. Be selective, choosing the most relevant and compelling sources rather than citing everything tangentially related to your topic. Awareness of common mistakes helps you avoid pitfalls that undermine credibility. Overstatement occurs when you claim research proves more than it actually does. A study showing correlation does not prove causation. A study with a specific population does not necessarily generalize to all populations. A study with promising results does not prove that an intervention always works. Use precise language that accurately reflects what research shows. Say research suggests rather than research proves when appropriate. Selectivity means ignoring evidence that contradicts your position. Reviewers who know the field will notice if you cite only favorable studies while ignoring well-known research with different findings. Address contradictory evidence directly rather than pretending it does not exist. You might acknowledge that some studies have found smaller effects or explain why certain negative findings may not apply to your context. Outdated sources undermine your credibility when newer research exists. Citing a study from 20 years ago suggests you are not current with the field, unless that study is a foundational classic. Prioritize recent publications, generally from the past 5 to 10 years, while including seminal older works that remain influential. Missing key works is a serious error that signals unfamiliarity with the field. Every field has foundational studies that experts expect to see cited. Failing to reference these landmarks suggests you have not done thorough research. Before finalizing your literature review, verify that you have included the essential references any knowledgeable reviewer would expect. Evidence clearinghouses are specialized databases that systematically evaluate intervention effectiveness and assign quality ratings. These resources can dramatically simplify your evidence gathering process. If your intervention model appears in a clearinghouse with positive ratings, you have ready-made evidence of effectiveness that carries significant weight with reviewers. The What Works Clearinghouse, operated by the Institute of Education Sciences, reviews education interventions and rates them based on evidence quality. Programs receive ratings indicating whether they have strong evidence, moderate evidence, or insufficient evidence of effectiveness. Check this clearinghouse for any education-related interventions. Blueprints for Healthy Youth Development evaluates prevention programs targeting young people. Programs are certified as Model, Model Plus, or Promising based on evidence rigor. Many youth-focused funders specifically ask whether proposed programs appear in blueprints. SAMHSA's Evidence-Based Practices Resource Center covers behavioral health programs, including mental health and substance use interventions. Programs are rated based on evidence strength and can be searched by issue area and population. Crime Solutions, operated by the National Institute of Justice, reviews criminal justice programs. Interventions receive ratings of effective, promising, or no effects based on available research. Check this clearinghouse for any programs related to justice involvement, re-entry, or crime prevention. When your proposed intervention appears in these clearinghouses with positive ratings, prominently feature this in your proposal. Clearinghouse endorsement provides third-party validation that can strengthen your application significantly. Not every intervention has robust research support, particularly innovative approaches and programs serving under-researched populations. When evidence is limited, you can still build a credible case using several strategies. Cite emerging practices appropriately by identifying interventions that show promise but have not yet been rigorously evaluated. Be honest about the evidence level, using language like preliminary research suggests or early evidence indicates rather than claiming proven effectiveness. Some funders specifically seek to support promising innovations and appreciate this transparency. Draw on related evidence when direct evidence is unavailable. If no research exists on your specific intervention with your specific population, look for evidence on similar interventions or the same intervention with related populations. Explain how findings might reasonably apply to your context while acknowledging the adaptation. Ground proposals in established theory when empirical evidence is limited. Theoretical frameworks can explain why your approach should work based on well-established principles. If your intervention is based on cognitive behavioral theory, for example, cite the extensive evidence base for cognitive behavioral approaches generally. Consider proposing to generate evidence through evaluation. If your intervention lacks research support, propose a rigorous evaluation as part of your project. This positions your organization as contributing to the evidence base rather than ignoring the evidence gap. Many funders appreciate proposals that acknowledge evidence limitations and propose to address them systematically. Managing citations effectively prevents errors and saves time across multiple proposals. Citation managers are software tools that help you organize sources and generate properly formatted citations. Zotero is a free, open-source option that integrates with web browsers and word processors. Mendeley is another free option with strong PDF management features. EndNote is a commercial product commonly used in academic settings. All three allow you to store source information once and generate citations in multiple formats as needed. Consistent formatting is essential for professional presentation. If the funder specifies a citation style, follow it exactly. Otherwise, use a style standard in your field, such as APA for social sciences, AMA for health fields, or Chicago for humanities. Whatever style you choose, apply it consistently throughout your proposal. Mixing styles signals carelessness. Complete bibliographic information ensures readers can locate your sources. Different source types require different elements. Journal articles need authors, year, title, journal name, volume, issue, and page numbers. Books need authors, year, title, publisher, and location. Web sources need organization, page title, URL, and access date. Missing elements frustrate reviewers and undermine credibility. Verify accuracy by double-checking citations before submission. Citation managers occasionally introduce errors, especially with unusual source types. Verify that author names are spelled correctly, years are accurate, and page numbers are correct. Errors in citations suggest broader carelessness that reviewers may assume extends to other parts of your proposal. This practical exercise walks you through a complete literature review process for one intervention. Step 1. Identify a specific intervention your organization uses or proposes to use. Be precise about what you are researching. Rather than tutoring generally, specify peer tutoring for elementary math or one-on-one adult literacy tutoring. The more specific your intervention definition, the more relevant your evidence search will be. Step 2. Search for evidence on that intervention's effectiveness. Start with Google Scholar for a broad overview, then search specialized databases relevant to your field. Use the search strategies we discussed, including citation chaining from relevant articles you find. Document what you find, including both supportive and cautionary findings. Step 3. Check relevant evidence clearinghouses for ratings. Determine which clearinghouses cover your intervention type and search them systematically. If you find your intervention model with a positive rating, note the specific rating level and what outcomes were evaluated. If your intervention does not appear, note that too, since this information is useful for understanding the evidence landscape. Step 4. Write a paragraph summarizing the evidence supporting your approach. Synthesize what you found into a coherent summary suitable for including in a grant proposal. Include key citations, note evidence strength, and acknowledge any limitations. This paragraph becomes the foundation for the evidence-based practice section of your future proposals. Let us summarize the key points from this lesson on literature review fundamentals. The primary purpose of literature review in grant writing is twofold: providing an evidence base for your claims and demonstrating your credibility to reviewers. Research validates your problem documentation, justifies your intervention approach, and signals that you are an informed organization working from knowledge rather than assumptions. An efficient approach is essential because you cannot read everything. Strategic searching using appropriate databases, refined terms, and citation chaining helps you find the most relevant sources quickly. Focused reading that prioritizes abstracts, methods, results, and discussion sections extracts key information without requiring you to read every word. Selective synthesis weaves multiple sources into coherent narratives that serve your proposal's purposes. Understanding evidence quality helps you prioritize the strongest sources. Not all research is equally strong, and sophisticated grant writers distinguish between study designs, evaluate sample characteristics, and recognize limitations. This discernment helps you cite research accurately and build the most credible case possible. In our next lesson, we will explore citation strategy in depth, examining how to balance seminal foundational works with recent publications, how to adapt citation approaches for different funders, and how to build reference lists that demonstrate both historical awareness and current knowledge. The skills from this lesson provide the foundation for strategic citation practices we will discuss next.